Alrighty, guys. Sorry for the little late click off going live there, but I had some stuff to get ready and get some photos ready because we have not only do we have a wonderful guest today, but we've got a gracious guest that has shared a lot of his photos. And I've just spoken offline with him, and we've already confirmed we're going to have him back for a second show. And he's got quite a few more photos that he's going to be willing to share with us so we can talk about those as well. So, first off, before I let him introduce himself more in depth, today we're joined by one of my favorite people. He served in First Force Recon with names like Rabbi, who's been a prior guest, Andy Finlayson, a prior guest. As a matter of fact, Doc Connor's name, who we had on, will come up. He may have actually served with Bart Russell as well, but nonetheless, we've got Mr. Jerry Maynard. Like I said, of First Force Recon. He was on a few teams, but notably in the profile picture or the thumbnail picture, he is with Countersign on a Marine radio relay site, Bana. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Jerry introduce himself to you guys, and we'll get into the questions and answer session. So, Mr. Jerry, thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Jerry Maynard. I joined the Marine Corps in 1965. Went through boot camp August to November 1965. And from there, I come out to California to 1st MP Battalion, which is, I did not wish to be there. That's where I was assigned out of boot camp. And first went to Vietnam with 1st MP Battalion. And as soon as I could, when I got out of there, in my case, I volunteered for First Force Reconnaissance Company was requesting volunteers, and I volunteered. So from I think it was July 1966 until January 1968, I served in South Vietnam with First Force Reconnaissance Company. My first team was Team Canal Zone, and that was Lieutenant Carlisle's team. And when I made my first patrol on the DMZ, we were still running 4-man teams at that time. And made a couple of patrols with Lieutenant Carlisle. The first patrol was really rough. It seemed like every vine in the jungle wanted to grab me and hold me down. And after a while, you learn just to make a little wiggle or stoop a little bit, and they'll kind of slide off of you. But that was the start of my career in First Force Reconnaissance Company. That was in July. We went to Camp Merrill, which was in East Da Nang. The main company was at Dong Ha at that time. I spent 2 weeks at Camp Merrill. Then we went north to Dong Ha. The CO at that time was Major Lowry. And like I said, Team Canal Zone, Lieutenant Carlisle. I'm getting tongue-tied now.
It's okay.
Too much at once. But, no, that started a career. I tried to move on up to, at that time we were running 4-man teams, and the object of the reconnaissance patrol was strictly that, was reconnaissance, to observe, try not to make contact if you could. And that's shortly after that, I think it was in November, when they went to what was called Operation Stingray. That's where they actually sent out reconnaissance teams to try and capture some of the VC or NVA, and actually set up ambushes. And that's when they went to the 7-man teams, 7 and 8-man teams. I made a couple of patrols there with the Canal Zone, and then, I think it was right around the 1st of November, myself, Corporal Moran was his name, a Corporal Bougeant, and Lance Corporal John now I can't remember his name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I'll think of anyways. First name was John, and myself, Lance Corporal Maynard, and we were only supposed to be on the rock pile for a week as a radio relay team for our other teams that were further out into the field. And this is, of course, the rock pile was right on the DMZ. We ended up spending 2 weeks on the rock pile. Ended up just 3 of us because Corporal Bouchant had to rotate back to the States. And that's one of the pictures I'm going to give Bud a little later is when the helicopter was coming in. They couldn't actually land there. We just had like a big wooden pallet on the rocks on the top of it. The helicopter would just hover there. As he's coming in, Bouchant has been over shooting a pilot at Moon. And you can see me entering into the picture, and I touched him in the butt with a cigarette. But anyway, when we left the rock pile, we came back to Dong Ha, and the main company had already left. Charlie Campbell was there waiting for us, and we immediately got on a C-130. And in our case, we went to Chu Lai. There's 3 platoons of First Force went from Dong Ha back to Da Nang. 3 platoons stayed at Da Nang. 3 went to Chu Lai. 2nd, 4th, and 6th platoon went to Chu Lai. I was in 6th platoon. And that started when we got to Chu Lai. That was my first encounter with Gunny Webb. I ran, altogether I had 43 patrols, and a large percentage of those I ran with Gunny Webb. A few more with Lieutenant Carlisle, but Lieutenant Carlisle was still running Team Canal Zone, and I was assigned with Gunny Webb. It was Team Checkmate. And we had a lot of patrols at Chu Lai. I was talking with Charlie Campbell, and he brought back the memories of how they were pitting us pretty heavy on the patrols, because a few patrols there, we would come in, resupply fresh water, and turn right around and go back out. In June, I think it was right around the first week of June, I rotated back home, and I'd already extended. And 1st of July, I come back, and during the time I was gone, 6th platoon, Team Checkmate was on Hill 452 outside of Da Nang, and lightning hit a 292 antenna and ran in and blew up the ammo bunker. And Tony Stowe and I think it was Corporal Allen were killed on that explosion. So they kind of, in a way, disbanded 6th platoon and put the Marines from those teams into other teams. Like Gunny Webb went to Colonel Fennelson's team, Killer King. In my case, they put me in 1st platoon, and I was assigned to Team Countersign, and which takes place the picture in Doc Lewis's book of me kneeling down there. I ended up leading that patrol because the team leader, Sergeant, got sick, and so I took over, and we ran one little patrol out of Ba over to an adjoining peak there, and it was kind of interesting that this Ba was at one time was probably a very beautiful place. It was a big hotel complex, and there was down below the main building of Ba were a number of bungalows, I will call them. And at that time, probably some wealthy French people frequented these places. It was all bombed out and everything. When I was there, you can see by the picture on the cover of the book. And we spent a little time there. And when I come back off of that patrol, that was my 42nd patrol. About a week later, September 7th, 1967, as we walked into my countersign was out, and we walked into an ambush up in Happy Valley. And that's when we lost Lance Corporal Welchel and Lance Corporal Walter. Oh, no. Man, I know that like my own name. I can't think of his name now. tied here. Gilmore, Walter Gilmore. And after that, after that patrol, I got out of the field and I got the company driver's job, and had a lot of interesting things go on as a company driver. So that's all it in a nutshell. If there's any questions that I can answer, anybody wants to say anything, and if there's anybody out there watching this that served with me or remembers me, let us know.
I'm hoping I put a few post notifications in a few of the online Marine Corps groups, but some of the guys don't get going, and they usually watch them later and send me questions. So I'm sure, or comments. So I'm sure I'll be getting a lot of active duty guys sending me questions after the fact. But we do have some questions going. But to kind of get it going while they're building up, and guys, we'll show some of the pictures that he was talking, some of the men that were mentioned, because we've got quite a few photos, as you know, from Rabbi previously and Andy, and Mr. Jerry has sent some. But the photo he's talking about right here, and I'll bring it up so y'all can see it. But again, this book is linked in the show notes, and Mr. Jerry has mentioned, I would say, a good 45% of the book. He's in a good chunk of the book, and his whole he's literally in the entrance of this gentleman's Force Recon career, and quite a few hairy missions, and we'll mention a few of them and bring them up. But let me pull this up while we're talking here. And while we're starting, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what your training was like stateside to get ready? Well, before that, here's the photo, guys, and as you can see, Mr. Jerry, would you like to explain what we're looking at?
That picture's at Bana, and that was our last day there. We were getting ready to waiting for the extraction helicopter to come and take us out. But we'd already spent a week there, and I'd say that at one time this was probably a very beautiful hotel.
Mm-hmm.
At the time we were there, of course, it's bombed out, and we had a platoon of grunts there with 106 rifle and a mortar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this was just the radio. We were there for radio relay, and on an average, most of the teams, you'd run 3 or 4 patrols actually in the bush, and then you would probably catch a radio relay such as Bana or Hill 452, or when we were at Chulai, it was Hill 700. And you would the team would occupy that for about a week, 4 to 7 days usually, depending on what they had going. Usually the outposts were, I'd say, much easier. You aren't actually patrolling, but there's no doubt that the BC and NVA knew you were there.
I was fixing to say we'll probably get into a story later to where it's not all kittens and fluffy pillows up there. Y'all may be doing radio relay for a team in the bush, but by no means are y'all not about to get attacked or overrun at a point.
Like I said, we do the radio relay at night, especially when the teams are set in what they would call a harbor site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your team would set into the harbor site and the radio relay during the night. I might call a team, a team countersign. We'd be calling from Beacon Light Zulu, and a countersign over Camel Butt Bravo, same, which meant, is your harbor site, is it the same place, and are you secure? And the team that was in the field, whoever we were calling, they would just key their handset twice. Hear the squelch, just a shh, shh. You don't want to be talking at night.
Oh yeah. That nothing worse than allow somebody forgetting the volumes up on a radio or it's squelching or something like that. That's a instant firefight ticket or worst case scenario death sentence. Well, before we get to our first question that I asked about training, can we clear up, because I know this will come up considering a few of the Marines, including yourself, are in Tigers. And guys, this is Mr. Jerry right here. You can looking young and like the killer madman he is with his mohawk. Did y'all wear tiger stripes in the field often, or were y'all in OD like these other Marines, or what was that?
The issue to begin with were just the jungle utilities, the Army green, Marine Corps green. The tiger stripes, most of the guys, you bought those from the village somewhere. Tiger stripes are not issued by the Marine Corps.
Okay. Yeah, because it looks like we've got three different style tiger stripes on the gentleman, including yourself, that are wearing it. It looks like.
Then a little later, they came out with the first camouflage uniform, the broadleaf like camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
They came, and the Marine Corps did issue that one.
Okay.
One reason too, we're at this outpost. Nobody is cammied up either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the reason for that being is you're at this outpost and you're not actually in the bush.
Two follow-ups on that before we move on. Or one, how durability wise, what was your preferred uniform for reconning? Did you like the Tigers? Did you prefer the OD green?
I personally preferred the Tigers because in my opinion, a couple times they saved my butt.
Oh, okay. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on one of those?
Well, I used to like to run point a lot and also carried the radio. How I ended up carrying a radio, I don't really know because that was not my MOS. In fact, my first patrol lieutenant, I carried a radio and I didn't really know much about it at that time. Anyway, what were we talking about? The uniform.
You're walking point, and you're talking about Tigers saved your life one time.
Well, I'll give you one example. And at Chulai with Gunny Webb, we were going to try and this is a long story. We tried to get in this valley 3 different times. The first time we observed it was in February during the Tet of 1967.
67.
And we observed some VC moving down a trail and carrying a mortar. And we tried to get a fire mission on it, but being that it was Tet, they wouldn't authorize a fire mission. So it was a few days later, we tried to go in again into this valley, and we were going to send in 2 teams. And as soon as we started to land in the LZ, there was VC in the LZ. And we offloaded. The firefight went on for a couple hours before things got quieted down enough that we could get out. So we extracted from there, and a few days later, we decided to try it again in just a little bit different spot, a little bit different setup. The first team to go in was a team from 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, and they went in across the river on a point of land that could cover this trail. And they had a 50 caliber machine gun with them.
Ooh.
And Team Checkmate, Gunny Webb's team, and I was running point then. We landed on top of a ridge across the river from where 1st Reconnaissance Battalion team with the 50 caliber were. And our object was we were going to go down, and it flattened out into like a rice paddy on this trail. And the object was we was going to set up a quick ambush there on this trail. And they told us if we got prisoners or dead bodies, they'd get us out immediately. So anyway, we landed right at dawn. I went down, worked our way down. and get almost to the trail. And the team from 1st Reconnaissance Battalion across the river, covering us with a 50, they called and they said that there's VC moving your way about 200 yards south of your position. So we thought we had enough time to set up a little quick ambush. But when I stepped out of this little bit of brush and was standing there, I was within 20 yards of the 2 VC leading supposedly a reinforced VC company. Okay. And I really think that the tiger stripes hid me just long enough that
get the jump.
That I good words. I got to jump in the situation. So Gunny Webb right away yelled to he said, "Get out there and get those bodies." So myself and a big guy from Texas called Tex Williams. His last name was Williams. They called him Buzz or Tex. About everybody from Texas, it seemed like they called him. But Buzz Williams, and I think his real name was Edward. He's a big guy. He and I ran out and got the first body, and Joe Phillips and somebody got the second body. When we got him, Gunny Webb, go to that bomb crater in the rice paddy. There's a big bomb crater about 7,500 yards out into this big rice paddy. It's a huge bomb crater. So Buzz and I grabbed the first one, and then a machine gun opened up. And we're running, and everybody says, were you scared? Were you this? Were you that? Well, yeah, hell yeah, I was scared. And Buzz must have been more scared than I was, because he was running so damn fast, I couldn't keep up. Running my legs right off underneath. So I kind of tripped and fell, and just a split second, I'm back on my feet. But by this time, Buzz, he was slowing down. And we made it to the bomb crater there, and set up in there a big 360. And Gunny got on the radio right away and asked for the emergency extraction, and they told us that they couldn't get us out right away because the Korean Marines have been hit hard, and all the choppers were tied up. So to make a long story short, this was probably, by this time, it's probably 9 o'clock in the morning. And we ended up staying there all day until just in the evening and just at dusk. They finally got a bird in for us. There was a whole lot more to that story. It'd take me a long time to tell everything, but that's it in a nutshell. The 1st Recon Battalion across the river, they were the first to get out because they'd run out of ammunition trying to cover us.
God almighty. Wow. That's crazy.
All, when it's I forget how many patrols by this time I'd had with Gunny Webb. It was not my first rodeo, but with Gunny Webb, for some reason you always felt safe. You just knew you were coming out of it. Maybe, I don't know if we got time today or not. There was another patrol at Chulai with Gunny Webb. That was on Hill 700. That was an outpost. It's myself drinking at the canteen. Jim Hager, which you'll hear a lot about in Andy Finlayson's book. Jimmy Hager is one of the first people I met when we got to Chulai.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Gunny Webb there kind of in the background. But there was one other one where I was carrying the radio of that patrol, and we had a Corporal Winters was his name. And we got hit, and when they first opened, Winters, I was helping him. We were running some C4 on a couple of trees. We're going to try and blow an LZ to get out. And that's when shit kind of hit the fan, and run out of blasting caps. Corporal Winters, he unscrewed the the firing mechanism on a grenade and stuck it down in the C4. And he's told me, he said, Maynard, he said, when I pulled the pin, he says, run. Well, I just kind of spun, and he pulled the pin, go. And it was an instantaneous explosion. Well, what happens, there's a short fuse in that grenade firing mechanism. It was faulty, which brings up another story later on in my life. But anyway, it blew me probably 20 feet. And it seemed like a long time, but probably only a few seconds. When I come to my senses, I thought, what happened? And Corporal Winters is screaming. And he was right there at it fucked him up pretty good. Pardon my language.
Oh no, sir. You don't have to censor on this. You can speak your mind.
I started screaming for Savory, Chuck Savory. His nickname was Stranger from Arizona, because he was from Arizona. A little crazy one. And both of us, Savory and I, came into first force about the same time. But anyway, we got Corporal Winters, and we started dragging him to the edge of this hill. The hill was so steep in the elephant grass that it was probably a good 60-degree grade. And we got down in the elephant grass, and Doc, man, get to talking, I forget.
Doc Connor or?
No, blonde hair, the one that, come on, Jerry. He went MIA for a while.
Laport?
He didn't come back off. Yeah, Laport, Mike Laport. He was working on Corporal Winters. I had a radio, and the first helicopter that came in was going to act as a spotter for us. So we pinpointed our position with a mirror, and then he started calling in airstrikes and the Huey gunships called slicks. And I don't know how to say this. It was starting to get pretty hot. But when the first helicopter come in, CH-46, he couldn't land where we wanted him to. So Gunny Webb was down this steep hill, probably 50 yards, with an air panel, which is a big fluorescent orange plastic sheet. And he's calling this bird, and the pilot was a hell of a pilot, because he actually backed this CH-46 into this hill. And right at the top of it, his rear blades were cutting elephant grass.
Jeez.
And while we're getting Winters onto the helicopter, he got shot in the back. So not only does he get blown half apart with this instantaneous explosion on the C4 we had on a tree, but now he's shot in the back. And Gunny Webb stood there all this time, and stuff flying all over the place, and never wavered. And I took one look at Gunny Webb, and you just, here again, you just kind of knew you were getting out. And I hate to keep saying it, but he's one hell of a man. As far as reconnaissance patrols and patrolling, and 90% of it I learned from Gunny Webb.
While we're put a pin in that, because I think now that we're talking about him would be a good time to speak a little bit more, because I'd like to share just how hard charging and gung-ho Gunny Webb was. But people have a lot of question about another issue with y'all's uniforms, and of course now I can't find the photo we were just looking at, but the photo on Bana, to where y'all are some of the guys have, oh, here it is, have headband. I think you're wearing a headband. Some of the guys have some floppy boonies. We got looks like an Aussie bush hat right here. Was there you and your headband, is there a set standard on what Marines wear in the bush for headgear, or
not in Recon?
Okay.
Not during my years there.
Okay.
Now, If we were in a bush patrol, I would wear a floppy hat.
Something like this or like
Yeah.
that right there.
Yeah.
Did you would you fold them up like this, or would you cut, or did y'all keep them floppy as can be, or?
The one that I wore, where you have the cursor on right now, that's Doc Lewis. The guy next to him, that's Ed Uncle. I would wear one similar to his.
Very, very famous name as well, guys. Ed Uncle.
Yeah, he just passed away not long ago. He owned a bar up in Cleveland.
Yes, sir. I was sad to get that news from Rabbi when he told me about that.
Yeah.
I love that photo of you guys, especially the mixed match of tiger stripes and everything going on. That's a wonderful photo of you guys.
Generally answer those questions, you know what? We were you kind of left up to you what you wanted to wear, and as far as the way you wanted to do your gear, there was no set rule sealed in steel that you had to do things this and that way. Mm-hmm. Generally, most of our 782 gear and the way we're similar from one person to another, but there was nothing said that you had to wear it just this way, such as canteens of water. I just went with 4 canteens of water because I didn't want to carry the extra weight. Some of the guys would carry 8 canteens of water. That's a lot of water. Now, I would sometimes we run into streaming and I'd refill my canteens. But
I've just written down to get back to Gunny Webb, but while we're on gear here, a question had already come up. Let me get to it. Was about a weapon, but if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit about yes, Jason, he did. That was what he was at that time, 43 patrols. That's crazy. He was asking what weapon were you using, the M16, Car 15, and why did you choose that weapon?
Well, to start with, we used M14s.
Oh yes,
7.62. About 5.1. One big reason, it started out a lot earlier. Some of the guys were carrying mismatched weapons, but then they ran into issues that they had to resupply you in the field. You got some guy in the rear running around trying to get all this oddball stuff together. So then they mandated that we carry the M14 rifle. Okay. And then later on, of course, to begin with, we didn't have the M16. I can remember going on one patrol with a staff sergeant that had the carbine, which that was the first one I'd ever seen. And he, we used to deal some wheel and dealing with special forces sometimes to get things that we didn't have. Yeah, scrounging. And he got it from a special forces guy, and I was just kind of awed at that weapon. I would like to have had it because he was a big. I can't remember his name. I only made one patrol with him, but we waded streams to. I thought I was going to be waterlogged for the rest of my life. That was his favorite thing, is to wade the streams on patrol. Wow. But anyway, like the mismatch of gear, yeah, there was a lot of different things. The standard was M14 rifle, and then later on when we got the M16, everybody had to carry the M16.
Were some other pictures or show, was there a designated M79 man, a thumper, or was that just a secondary for someone to carry? Or
yeah, it was there wasn't anybody that definitely that's the only thing you did was carry the M79. Sometimes you'd trade off in the team. Everybody would usually carry extra M79 ammo, so that whoever had the M79 didn't have to try to lug everything yourself.
Yeah.
Most of that stuff, your good team leaders and stuff you divide the gear up. Like I had extra radio batteries. You know, if I was carrying a radio, I'd usually carry one extra battery with me, and then somebody else in patrol would always have at least one other radio battery. Wow. Same way with the M60, you know, gunner, yeah, he carried most of the ammo, but the rest of it was divided up between all of us. You carry your own gear plus a belt or two of machine gun ammo. So.
Wow. And for a common, and again, you mentioned, which is interesting because if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Barry Babin was still running 4-man patrols there for a while. What was the average weapon loadout? Was every man an M16, M7, then having an M79 with a M60, or was it all assault rifles and M79s, or did y'all go heavy sometimes?
Well, on average patrol, of course, every man would have an M16. If as an officer they were issued, they could carry a 45 if they wished. You know, if you could figure out a way to get one, you could carry one yourself. No. The every patrol he had an M79. And that would be divided up the extra rounds. That's Doc Laport there, lower picture, and that's me with the circle. This guy here, right below me, is Joe Woods. Black guy there, that's Bryant. That's Savory, Chuck Savory. The big guy up here, right there, that's Williams, Buzz Williams.
Oh, Tex, okay.
One next to him is R.A. Williams, no relation, but R.A. was KIA'd on June 7th, 1967.
God. I like his hat. What kind of hat is he wearing here?
Oh, you zoom in real good. Sergeant Eslick is his name. Real character there.
I'm judging by the hat. I would say so. That's I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. And there's I like the Ho Chi Minh sandals Doc's got on. There's quite the assortment of weapons you guys have here. We've got a old taped up and battle tested 14 right there. I swear, from the looks of it, somebody's got an M16 right here. I mean a shotgun, but I could be wrong.
No, you wouldn't have a shotgun.
Okay. It could be another 14. I think over here was a 16, but
I don't think anybody had a 16 then, Bud. Those like that was at Chulai, all M70 or M14s.
Wow. Oh, this was Canal Zone. Okay. So yes, sir. Yeah. Wow. Now I love Chulai, guys. That's pretty daggone close to the Quaviette River, isn't it? Pretty beachy, sandy area.
We were right. Might as well say we were right on the beach.
Yeah.
Our actual tents, hooches, they were wooden frame with a tin roof on them and the canvas sides. We were on a slight little sand dune, and then between us and the actual beach, the water, the 1st Recon Battalion had 2 companies there.
Oh. Okay.
And straight line distance, it was probably 300 yards from our hooches to the water, the actual beach at Chulai.
Okay. Wow. I've seen some great photos of guys using spare long johns, since they wouldn't be needing long johns, out there at the beach. I don't think Chulai is too high near the mountain, so it would get cold, but not too cold. So they started cutting them up and making beach camo for when they were doing patrol around the base in the sand, and that was some ingenious plan. I forgot if Terry Addis or Barry Babin did it, but one of the 2 men did it, and great photos of them on there. I think we've got some popped around somewhere. But yes, we wanted to, before we get in any deep to yours, I thought it was appropriate, considering how much he played in your life, to speak a little bit about Gunny Sergeant Walter M. Webb Jr. Just off the top, before Mr. Jerry gets going, I've got a bit to read here because, as we mentioned earlier, Doc Laport, Michael Laport, is a Marine that is MIA, presumably now KIA, body not recovered. That there's a little bit of a Hufflepuff in the community Some men think he defected. Others believe he died in the jungle after the jump or on the jump. I really don't know what to make of it. We'll get Mr. Jerry's opinion, but Mr. Gunny Sergeant Webb was on this, and he says here he remembers the day like it was Pearl Harbor, September 5th, 1967. I'll never forget that day. And this is where he's living in Puerto Rico, but now has to live in St. Louis because of Agent Orange lymphoma. But listen to this about people wondering about Marine Corps jumps. This was one of 3. But Walter Webb had already made 160 practice jumps. Most of the others, including Laport, had fewer than 20, more in the ballpark of 10. 2/3 of the men had never even jumped at night. But Doc Laport was a jumper when I knew him, Walter Webb says. So, Gunny Webb already had 160 jumps by the time he's about to do one of the Marine Corps' combat insert jumps.
Just a slight correction. Doc Laport was not a Marine. He was a
Navy Corpsman.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But he was every bit as good as any of the Marines that we went with. So
that was what was so strange with that story. It's and with the people especially saying that he defected and all of that, and there is evidence. I'm not going to say there isn't. There is some weird stuff he did in leading up to it. But I
had one of the few pictures of Doc Laport.
When you showed these, I was utterly shocked because no one, including men I've spoken to, have ever seen. I've not shared these. Guys, these are actually the first time many people will ever see these, and probably the only time some other vets have ever seen these photos. But this is the Doc Laport. You can Google his name and it'll come up instantly with all kinds of stuff. But I was shocked when he sent these to me that day.
For what it's worth, I heard all the stories that Doc Laport was sighted in villages and so on and so forth after the jump, that he defected and all that. Mm-hmm. I personally don't believe that. I was on a few patrols with Doc Laport. We lived close together when we were out of the bush. He was a very caring individual.
Absolutely.
He had a lot of sympathy for the Vietnamese. He would go to the village and offer different medical care and so on and so forth to some of the villagers and all of that stuff. And I think that's probably where the stories got started, that he was a sympathizer.
Getting too close.
Yeah, I don't personally believe that. I think he died in the jump.
A night jump is so dangerous. I mean, we know from talking to the SOG men that we've had. We had the guy who was one of the men on the first SOG combat Halo, and it's dangerous jumping, let alone jumping at night, preparing for combat.
Well, that's why I was in the field. We went in on September 5th when the Gunny Webb and the group made the jump. And part of our mission there was to help support them once they was on the ground. But on September 7th, that's when I walked into the ambush.
God. And it's funny you brought that up just a second ago. Gunny Webb even said, for a Navy guy, he was one hell of a Marine. It's testifying, saying he was doing great work, and much like you said, he was a medical specialist and helped greatly with the Marines, and also in surrounding villages. Had worked at the hospital in Saigon, but had gotten bored of shuffling paper and working on people that had already been injured and worked on before. He wanted to be in the field with y'all. It kind of sounds, like you said, he just doesn't sound like the kind of guy that is gonna try and make a combat jump to defect when he could just walk off.
And I think can't remember. Did I ask you if you know Staff Sergeant Charlie Campbell?
We've only mentioned him, and I was going to bring him up, but I'm glad you did. No, I do not know Mr. Charlie. No, sir.
Well, I should. He was when we served together, and I first met. He was a staff sergeant, but he stayed in it. And he went on to become he got as high as a Marine captain.
Oh,
and then he went back to the enlisted ranks before he got. Because when I talked with him here a short time, he said he got too much paperwork being an officer, and but Charlie's another good man around a lot of patrols at Chulai, and one hell of a super Marine. I'll put it that way.
Was he a jump trainer or a cadre?
For the most part, when they did the training jumps at Da Nang there, he was the jump master.
Wow, man. Okay, and yeah, he was doing. I've got some really good photos from Mr. Larry Quigley and some other guys that were put through jump training there, and they're getting their blood wings and all of that, and it's amazing. I love hearing about the Marine Corps' jump and all of that. They actually had a Special Forces man as their instructor, which he said was pretty cool. They did a little trade of Marine Corps stuff, and he gave them some Special Forces stuff to honor the class.
Yeah, there used to be some trading between the Marines and Special Forces. So.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine officially and unofficially there was some good trades going back and forth.
Especially if you had K-bars. They loved K-bars, and they didn't get them issued. And
oh yeah,
of all the things they could get, they couldn't get the K-bars. Yeah.
Wow.
K-bar, if you had one you wanted to get, so it was worth gold.
That's wild. I've got my dad's and another one there in my bedroom, and it is still I could probably shave with it, to be honest with you. That thing keeps an edge like nothing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was always carrying on my left hand shoulder strap with a day-night flare.
Did you carry it handle down where you could snatch down?
Yep. There's a reason for it. It's a lot easier to get out of the sheath if you need it, especially if you pack on your back or whatever. Somebody jumped on your back by chance.
That's what I was thinking. I was just curious on your personal preference.
A reason behind each and everything that your piece of gear that you carried.
Absolutely. A rhyme and reason to literally everything.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there was nothing exactly standard. If you were left-handed, you probably wouldn't want to carry it on your left-hand shoulder. You carry it on your right.
I can
some common sense things.
Yeah, and especially if it's something like a map or flares or a grenade, it's something you're going to be going for. You definitely want to make it as easy as possible and as accessible as possible for yourself. Let's see. Mr. Robert was wanting to let you know that he's got love and respect for you, and he wanted to thank you for your service and sacrifices, and welcome home.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert's a good follower, and he's a good man. He's supported the channel and all the vets that we've had on for a while. All of our followers have, but he's been with us for a while, as well as one of our others that are coming up. Let's see. As we're getting into these, could you talk a little bit about your training? That's kind of where I jumped off ship there and kind of went my own way. What was did you have any form of reconnaissance training pre-Vietnam or in Vietnam? Or
I got all of mine in Vietnam. The little bit you got at that day and time in California, it was called in staging. It was they had a Vietnamese village set up there.
Oh, okay.
And
okay. A little mock-up area.
Right. But like so many things in training, it doesn't actually work out that way in the actual situation,
So you can't break rules. They can't, it's you can't go as far as what's going to happen, and it's not the real thing,
Right.
Just
you kind of you know, in training they tell you if you get ambushed from the left, charge into it, right? Well, if a well laid ambush, there's not going to be anybody left anyway. If you're the only one left standing after you're probably best bet just to run like hell, hope that they don't get you. There's no, you got to, each situation you'll have to kind of take it as it comes.
What, where was I mean, but pre-Vietnam, training wise, where do you think you learned the most that ended up coming in handy in Vietnam at? What was it, a school? Was it any just basic what where do you think you got some training that really helped out down the road?
Probably, in all honesty, probably the only thing that I can say that really helped me in Vietnam was familiarization with your weapon. There was so much that once you're in Vietnam, that you learn kind of hands-on.
On the job training, as they say.
The guys that's been there before you, and you try to pass it on to the ones that are coming behind you.
Wow.
When I was down in Cuba, you know, a lot of the young Marines there that were destined after Cuba, they were probably going to Vietnam. I tried to pass on to them as much knowledge as I could, that it was not a game. You know, it's not like when you were a kid, you played soldier, and when it got dark, you went home to your mom. So it's the real thing, and you might as well understand that before you get there. It's not a game. And I hope that I helped some of the younger fellows.
I would like to think you did. I would very much, considering what all you saw, did, and we'll get into some more stuff that shows you definitely had some experience and knowledge to pass on. Let's see here. One question we always get, and we've had a few different ones each time. How did you get to Vietnam? Did you fly, or did you have to take a ship like the old days?
We went on board ship. There was 1,500 Marines on board that ship.
Wow.
USS Upshur.
Wow.
I can tell you stories about that too if you want to hear them.
Oh, well, we'd love to hear a story on the ship. Absolutely.
I was raised around in Sandusky, Ohio, right on Lake Erie. Mm-hmm. And growing up and everything, I've been on a number of boats and in rough weather, so on and so forth. And we boarded the ship, USS Upshur, and we said there was 1,500 Marines on board. The ship was an old, what they call a victory ship from World War II. And the sewage system were just like troughs in the floor. And you'd pee in that trough or whatever, and it'd go down a drain somewhere. But anyway, 3 days out of San Diego, we hit heavy seas. And this ship is bobbing around. I'm not kidding you could see water breaking over the bow of it. They were like 30-foot waves. And first day, probably maybe a third of the Marines on board got sick. And I'm thinking to myself, I was on boats and stuff all my life, it ain't going to bother me none. The second day, probably 2/3 are sick. By the third day, I'm one of the last ones that's sick. And everybody was so sick, nobody feels like cleaning anything up. And you're stacked in these, your bunks, I think there was 6 high in each compartment. And all this barf and everything is running in the floors. And it was probably a week. We went like that before we got enough people around that had gotten used enough to it that nobody's seasick anymore, and you could put some people to work cleaning this mess up. So it wasn't planned. It wasn't pleasant. And then the bright minds in the Marine Corps decided that they were going to try and experiment with us. They were going to try and see if we could get climatized before we got to Vietnam. So every day we PT'd like hell out there on those decks, and the sweat running off of you, and just hotter than hell, so on and so forth. First place after San Diego we hit was Hawaii. We spent 3 days there. After Hawaii, we went to Okinawa. And no, I can take that back. We went to Japan and then to Okinawa. And then the last stop before Vietnam was in Taiwan. And the ship pulled, it was like one of the old Humphrey Bogart movies. When we pulled into port, it was early in the morning. There was still fog running across the docks, and there was rickshaws and all that stuff there.
Wow.
And, me and a buddy of mine, his name was Ed Kellogg. And shortly after we got to Vietnam, he got sent back to the States and went to Annapolis and became a Marine Corps officer. But anyway, wow. He and I, when we got off the ship there, they had a little Liberty. We stayed there 2 days. And by the time we hit Taiwan, nobody had any money. You know, I think at that time, it's only making like $40-some a payday. It's $98 a month is what it made as a Marine PFC. And anyway, we got off the ship there, and I apologize if there's any ladies listening, but you had all this BS that that you learn in boot camp and stuff, is that your life expectancy on a beachhead's like 11 seconds, so on and so forth. So we thought in our brilliant minds that we might as well both have some our last piece of sex before we go to Vietnam, in our wise wisdom. So we didn't have any money, but we had, I think we had a couple of dollars between us. He had a broken wristwatch and our brass belt buckles. We managed to get satisfied. We had a little bit of swapping and trading. But, when we got to Vietnam, it wasn't like a video, the ship docked in the harbor and they brought out these big landing craft and we offloaded and went to Vietnam. They picked us up on got on shore and they picked us up in trucks and took us to these, where we went the first time, eventually became Marine Corps Brig and the sniper training school there. And it was on the backside of Hill 327. On the other side was where 1st Marine Division headquarters was, and Camp Reasoner, where I ended up eventually. So.
Okay. Well, with that, how? Because one of our next questions is going to be about your first day getting with force, but how? What was your next stop? When you landed, were you going to a station to where you requested force recon, or what's that situation?
That was with first MP Battalion. It was a new unit at that time, and in fact, a whole lot of the guys I graduated boot camp with, and that whole series ended up in that battalion.
Oh, wow.
Because it formed in California, and we did a couple of months of training, and then boarded ship and went to Vietnam. And that was pretty much it.
Wow. Okay. This question, there's a few that are actually kind of funny that we'll do right after this. Jason's curious, can you talk about the first day you got loaded up with your gear? What all did you receive, and what did you add on later after experiencing a few patrols of your own?
Well, my first patrol was at Dung Ha with Lieutenant Carlson, and it was a 4-man team. And at that time, he gave me a radio, even though I wasn't a radio man, and give me some brief instructions on how to use it. And there was Lieutenant Carlisle, a Corporal Postrom, I think was his last name, myself, and Chuck Savory that went on that patrol. I had an M14 rifle, and at that time, I think I only had 5 magazines with me. I had 4 canteens of water. What was actually a rucksack that I did not like. That's another story on some of the gear. It was a big, clumsy rucksack that was not comfortable. I think I had my day-night flare. I didn't have probably half the gear that I a little later on learned that I would need, along with the other guys, the other men. I had a radio, had an extra battery in there, the rifle and 5 magazines, which eventually I carried a whole lot more ammo. But this is when we were just doing observation. On that patrol, the idea was we would watch this trail during the daytime, and we knew that there was VC and NVA moving up and down this trail. And we tried for 3 nights that after it got dark to move down and lay alongside this trail. We wanted to count and see how many NVA were there. At night they'd have these little lanterns, and we were trying to find out how many men were between the lanterns. But it was so dark that we never did find the trail after dark. You couldn't. You had a little fluorescent patch on the back of your hat, your cover, and that's how we followed the person in front of you. Is just watching this little tiny luminous dot. And it was really kind of stupid because we did a whole lot of tripping and falling. And we never, like I said, we never did get to close enough to the trail where we could actually count how many individuals were between the lights. If you understand what I'm talking about there. Mm-hmm. So you'd have a light, and then you might have 5 or 6 NVA without lights following. Then you have another light, and you have another 5 or 6. We never were able to count exactly how many were between the lights.
Wow. And you mentioned ammo. What was your let's just say if there's never a standard, but routine, what would you carry out for your 16?
With the M14 rifle, well, eventually, to start with, we just had the single magazine pouch for the M14. You get 1 magazine in that pouch. You usually get 2 on each side. That was 4. 1 in the rifle was 5. Okay, and you might carry a couple of bandoliers, extra ammo in your pack. That was at Dong Ha, and my real early patrols in First Force. And by the time I got to Chu Lai and we meet Gunny Webb, and I get with some more experienced people, I ended up carrying. And then that's when you get into the swap and trade. The Marine Corps at that time did not have double magazine pouches. So we would swap and trade with Special Forces, get the double magazine pouches. You usually carry 2 of those on each side. With the M14 magazine, you get 2 in each one. That was 4 mags on each side. When we got the M16s, we would take that double magazine pouch and you cut it at the outside corners, and you could get 4 magazines in there. And the reason for cutting it is so that you could get the magazines out when you needed them. If you did not cut it, it was hard to get those magazines out of those pouches. Okay. When we went to the M16, you'd carry 2 pouches on each side, 4 magazines to each pouch, and usually 2 in the rifle, 1 in the magazine, the other one upside down. You had taped so you could flip it around real quick. And then I would carry a couple extra bandoliers ammo in my butt pack, which you're going to talk about that. I mentioned earlier about the rucksack. The Army used to issue them in World War II. What I really liked is you could go to the Ville and buy an Arvin rucksack. It kind of had a little tiny crisscross frame in it. And there was 2 big pouches on the outside of it. You put a canteen of water in each one of those, and they fit real well, and they were pretty comfortable. And then the 782 gear, get the 2 magazine pouches on each side. With the M14, you could get 2 in each pouch. The M16, you could get 4 in each pouch. I used to like to Hang on just a second here. I'll let my cat out of the room.
It's fine, sir.
She's a little crazy here. Go on. There, she's out. She'll beat the door to death when I let her out.
Don't worry. Well, I've got that same problem here. They know from experience watching.
But I used to, since I like to run point a lot back in the day, is pilot gloves. They fit pretty tight on your hand because if you're in the bush, you run point. A lot of those, the elephant grass and different vines, will cut you or stick you. I like those lightweight pilot gloves. Cut the thumb and the first finger out of them, so that you can pull the magazine out of the pouch easier.
And with what are the Marine? Because again, we do have our Force Recon guys, but not as prevalent as our SF men or SOG men. What are y'all's? Are you doing white phosphorus, frags, smoke, claymores, the whole shooting shebang?
Now, usually had each man had a white phosphorus. Each man usually had a CS grenade, and then you'd have a couple different colors of smoke for your extractions, especially extractions. So you'd throw one out, and then you'd be talking to the pilot on the extraction helicopter, and you'd throw it out, and he'd say, "I see a red smoke." Yeah, that's me. So there's the reason I did CS grenades. Everybody had the gas mask.
And did y'all? We've heard on both sides of the house there sometimes being some issues with the on extracts, either the NVA or the VC having their own smoke grenades either captured or what have you to throw you off. Did y'all ever come across that issue at all?
So you throw it out and the pilot identifies it.
Okay, that's the foolproof. There you go. Okay. Was there any? I'm not sure if I've asked. Were there any specialty items or gear? Maybe did y'all do any wiretapping, such as, or planting sensors and such, or?
No, not with us. They did have some. They came out with some. You use them on patrol sometimes. I never used them, and I don't think they worked very well at that time. You could put out the little sensors to try and notify you if anybody was trying to sneak up on you.
Okay. I'd heard
we did have starlight scopes.
Okay.
Depending on your patrol, you might every patrol didn't carry a starlight scope, but if your patrol, you're going on a mission that warranted that, you would one of the Gunny Webb or whoever would send you down to draw one of those out.
Well, speaking of, didn't you actually attend a school for ambushes and set up a night raid ambush of your own?
Well, yeah, I did. That's kind of funny. I graduated from boot camp. Of course, at that time, everybody went up to ITR. Right out of boot camp.
Could you explain ITR, what that acronym stands for?
Infantry Training Regiment. Okay. So I get up here, and this was, I don't know, it was probably towards the end of November 1965.
Oh, wow.
And we went through all that training, and it worked all the way up to, it was about the first couple of days of December. And we got everybody together, and they were paying everybody. And at that time, about everybody was getting like $125. And they called my name. I go up there, and the sergeant reads off, Jerry Maynard, He said, $25. And I said, sir, I can't go home on $25. And he said, well, wait a minute. He said, what was your name again? I told him her name again, and he looks down and he said, he said, you won't be going home. Man, my legs about went out from under me. Because boot camp. I've been in, hadn't been home since August, and he said, "You've been scheduled for night raids and ambush school."
Oh,
Oh man, my heart just sank. But yeah, we did that. We'd all around Camp Lejeune for a couple of weeks. We'd go out at night on trucks and stuff, and part of you would set up ambushes and then ambush the trucks when they came by. And part of the time you're on the trucks and you're the ones getting ambushed and all that training. But we ended up, they ended the training. It was like I think it was the 23rd of December, 1965. And fortunately, I had a couple of friends that had already finished the training, and they'd already gone home and come back down there, and they had a car. So I actually got home on Christmas Eve,
wow.
1965.
Wow. That's great. I imagine that was just a heck of a wonderful Christmas for your parents and you. They're literally beating it right there, getting there on Christmas.
Well, I was kind of my dad. I was the oldest of 5 kids. My dad was killed in a car wreck when I was 11, and I kind of grew up early in life, and
Shane joined us today.
Pardon?
Shane, this comment is Shane.
Oh, my son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was thanking and glad you're on here sharing, and I was thanking him for getting us connected.
He's a Marine too. That's one of the proudest days of my life is I went down when he graduated. Because when I graduated boot camp and the other Marines with me in November 65, there was hardly anybody there, in the bleachers or anything. And when I went down to see my son, man, there was hundreds of people there to see their son or boyfriend, whoever it was that was graduating. People were there to see him, and it just I was so proud. I think I was prouder that day than the day I graduated.
Wow. I know you were proud, and I know Shane had to be extremely proud to start his road to following in your footsteps and being the best Marine he could possibly be.
And he was. He was.
I remember you speaking very proudly of him in some of our off-camera conversations, and he definitely sounds like he was a heck of a Marine. I'm hoping one day on down the line that he would be open and willing to share his legacy a little bit with us if he'd be open to. So maybe
I'm sure he would. He was. He'll have to tell his story. He was in on some of that Somali stuff.
Oh yeah. That's why I'm wanting to. Again, his story, their stories, but especially the men of Somalia need their story told. It's another overlooked combat. They like to call it a police action, but that was furthest thing from a police action. Let's see here. We've got some good stuff, but I thought maybe to lighten the load a bit, it's a two-parter. One is from Dick. It is, what's the funnest story you have about your time in Vietnam?
Funny.
Combat, field related, or just out and about, whatever's.
The funniest story.
Probably a lot to pick from.
Okay, I can tell you this one. It was at Chulai, and when we were out of the bush, a lot of people did a lot of crazy things. I was still a Lance Corporal there, and we had a sergeant. Damn it, my mind goes blank. I know all of these names, and I probably shouldn't mention his name. Okay, well, his name was Jerry Arnold, Sergeant Jerry Arnold, and at that period of time, when he would get drunk, his favorite thing to do, he'd strip off his shirt And if he could find one, he'd grab a garbage can lid and he'd beat it. You know, I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. You know. We ran out of the bush and it was, I don't know, it was like 2:00 in the morning or something. The lights in the hooch popped on, and here stands Jerry Arnold. You know,
Oh God.
oh, fuck a warrior. I'm a fucking warrior. And he's beating his chest with his, and the guy right across from me set up, and John Holtz was his name. Real tall, slim guy. He kind of sat up in his bed and he says, oh, yeah, Jerry Arnold had a K-bar in his hand. And he's screaming, I'm a fucking warrior. And Holtz sat up in the bed and he said, oh, fuck you, Arnold. Get the hell out of here. Well, Arnold threw this K-bar at him, and it glanced off of a 2x4 and smacked John Holtz right in the head. Well, we all kind of got this skinheaded Recon haircut, and the tip of that K-bar just went underneath the skin and kind of flopped down. Blood went everywhere. Of course, a head wound, you know, there's always a lot of blood.
Oh yeah.
And Holtz is screaming and yelling, and Arnold is screaming and yelling, ha! Blood! I'm a fucking warrior. It's blood.
That must have, and especially with all of you of sleep, I can't. I've had some wild experiences with my fraternity brothers and doing some nonsense, but I can only imagine a Recon Marine riled up at night coming in there and waking everyone up like that. That's
last I heard anything of Arnold is he was in prison in Florida for murder.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
A lot of years ago. We've been, how many years of Vietnam? 55 plus, I think it is. I originally planned on making a career out of the Marine Corps. I got a little disillusioned down in Cuba. So when I did get out in '69, I started to work for General Motors, and I hated that job. Oh, I hated that job. And I was ready to quit and go back to the Marine Corps, and I ran into my wife.
And that changed the whole game plan.
That's, you know, history's what it is. I took one look at her and said, that's the girl I'm going to marry, and we've been married 54 years now.
There you go. Congratulations on that. That's a testament right there to true love, 54 years and counting.
Yeah, she's the one that needs the congratulations, because she put up with me in my early years. Drinking, riding motorcycles. And
there are strong women that married you Vietnam vets. I saw that with my mother, and they're strong women.
I did a lot of bad things when I was younger.
We all did. You all did. It's one of those things, and a part of growing up. We've got some good ones here before we do our photo. Or you talking a little bit about Cuba and us doing some photo rundowns. This will be interesting. Dick also is curious about two-parter. Who was the craziest bastard you knew? And who was the bravest, in your opinion, of course?
Probably the craziest might have been Jerry Arnold that I was just talking about.
I was about to say.
And the bravest, I'd have to give it hands down to Gunny Webb.
I could easily see that just off what I've read and heard from you personally. That man was... Well, heck, I was just looking at my notes here. I mean, geez, on all the stuff that he did alone, you and him, but where is it? Right here. I think y'all ran at least a dozen. No, that was with Doc Laport. I thought it said somewhere you and Gunny Webb ran at least 10 to 11 missions together as well, though. I could be misplacing that. Jerry Arnold popped up at Chu Lai. Was his did he go by the code name Gladiator?
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. We've got a SOG man that's a legendary SOG man that his code name was Gladiator also.
He would scream, I'm a gladiator. I said warrior, didn't I? He would scream, I'm a gladiator.
There you go. I love that.
Gladiator.
And the Force Recon guys, and I guess Battalion too, y'all had kind of like the Rangers have theirs, but the Marine have their own growl. Their, what is it? The Recon. I loved hearing that and reading.
Recon.
Yeah. I mean, just guys just yelling it out anytime they can. And it's guys, another good book, by the way. I did not even mention that. This has been a work of labor of love and just amazing work from 63 to 71, getting all of the history of Force Recon and Recon in Korea and WW2, as a matter of fact. And Mr. Barry Babin, who's been a guest, Andy Finlinson, Rabbi, and several others helped out. And I think maybe Mr. Jerry actually helped out a little bit as well with it.
No, not in that book, no.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. But guys, that's another one, a good one as well. Let's see here. Night raid and your ambush school. Oh, as we're moving on, was the ambush school? Did it? Like you said, it said to charge in, which was crazy. But did you pick up any good stuff out of that ambush school in Sayside?
No, other than just how you're supposed to set up, form different ambushes.
Okay. Like proper formation of an L shape and.
Yeah, if you set up right, there shouldn't be anybody left after your initial burst of fire. That's why you set up, and some people are designated as the kill team. It's initial burst of fire, then you start sweeping through and dispatching anything that might be left.
Absolutely, and yes, there's a lot of great stuff in both of these books. Mr. Lewis's. Andy Finlinson guides, who y'all know we've had as a guest, and this one, and Force Recon's utilization of not only the keyhole and the stingray approach of Recon, but their use of ambushes and using air is absolutely amazing. I always love hearing about y'all sighting a large group of enemy and just calling in air out of the bejesus out of them. And
the story I told you about Gunny Webb and Corporal Winters. Corporal Winters got kind of blown up and shot. We weren't actually calling it because we had a spotter on station, and it was a Marine Corps pilot spotter, and he was bringing in F-4 Phantom jets to the top of this hill. It was kind of flat, and we were way down over the side of it. And he brought F-4s in within probably 75 yards of us. And the first thing they did was strafe with 20 millimeter cannon. I can't understand how the NBA and the VC would still stand and fight after something like that. And then in the second run they dropped 250-pound bombs. And then the third one, they dropped napalm. And how anybody could stand up to that on the receiving end, I don't know, because we were right there. It seemed like they were right on top of us. And fortunately, that day we had the spotter on station, and he directed all the aircraft, the air power.
Trying to that, I guess it's that method, trying to grab you by the belt, so to speak. And get in.
I remember that day of talking. I asked that spotter, said, "Hey," I said, "how'd you like to trade places?" And he said, "Not in your fucking life. Not in your fucking life." That was Blackbird, I believe, was his call sign.
You know it's bad when even the pilots pass up and say they want no part of y'all's line of work.
In Doc Lewis's book, maybe I'm blowing my own horn a little bit. It made me so proud. I met him up in Akron about 4 years ago, and he signed my book. I don't know if you can see it or not. He signed it, "Jerry, you're one of the best Marines that I've ever had the honor of serving with, and best of everything, Doc Lewis." That made me so proud that he thought enough of me to say that in the book.
That's high praise, and it is a wonderful, wonderful book. And I'm pulling up some stuff at the moment for photos, but I wanted to, since we're actually speaking about it, I wanted to pull out something, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit here. But as I said, guys, all of these little bookmarks I have are indicators of where just what I found in short amount of getting ready this morning of Mr. Jerry being mentioned. And really where Mr. Jerry enters the story is a chapter labeled Midnight Skulkers. And maybe he can elaborate what in the heck that is about. But he starts seeing this is the new medic, Doc Lewis. He's coming in and everyone's busting his balls as everyone will do, calling him an FNG, a squid, and the healthy Marine Corps Navy banter back and forth. And he finally starts getting introduced to everyone. And finally he gets to Lance Corporal Ed Uncle, who just goes by Uncle, as we mentioned, very legendary Force Recon Marine. And it gets up to Mr. Jerry here, and he is instantly noticed that Mr. Jerry is sitting in what looks to be a very comfortable fold-up chair that is not Army issued, that eventually, if I'm not mistaken, Lou ends up getting off of you when you start to head home.
Yeah, I gave that chair to him. So,
I thought that was funny. And he immediately notices your calendar, your short timer's calendar, and he has no idea what that is, and he's got to ask everybody what the heck that means. And you know, it really picks up right there, and all of a sudden he's sleeping. Peewee and Corporal Maynard were nowhere in sight. Guys are getting up, and I believe he gets a call, or maybe this is later, where he gets a call that Killer Kane's coming in. But he does one of the best parts, speaking about y'all's issues on Bana, which we'll probably speak about in a minute, but describing each of where y'all are. I love the Marines. You've got guys out of Kansas, City Boys out of Philadelphia, guys out of Pittsburgh. Then you've got guys like Tex out of Texas, Country Boys, Black Boys. And then, of course, you come in and give him his guns, or his weapons, I should say. And they kind of you kind of break stuff down for him, let him know what's going on, get him squared away. And pretty quickly, you guys get, and if I'm not mistaken, it may be an ambush, or y'all are taking fire from maybe at Bana, and you I'll remember it because you're on that M60 and people are watching you just go crazy with it, laying down what I think is a potential ambush to overrun Bana.
Yeah, we had some issues up there,
to say the least.
And you mentioned Peewee. Yeah, I have the honor of serving with some extremely fine Marines and other members of the military that I met throughout my career. But Peewee, Ed Palmer's his real name, Peewee we called him, was another extraordinary Marine. Little small guy, but tougher than nails. He's the one I think I told you about. They told stories of you had heard that sometimes leeches, that everybody hated. I hated leeches, one of the worst things in Vietnam. But Peewee got one up his penis at one time. That is honest to God's truth. When they talked about that, I don't think they mentioned his name before, but Peewee's in a nursing home down in Thomas, West Virginia. And hell of a Marine, tougher than nails. But
I wish I had. I've got a photo of Peewee in full battle rattle, but here's a photo of Peewee.
He's right on the cover of the book. He's standing right next to Ed Uncle. Yeah, that's Peewee right in the middle there.
This is a beach trip. I forgot where they're. Is it? What's the name of that place y'all would go? Point Viquez or?
Well, there was Elephant Beach.
No, this was in not Cuba. I forgot the name of the place. Point Viqueus. It
No,
was a train.
Viegas.
Yes, that's it. It was a training facility,
Yeah, it's an
and
island. U.S. military used to own it. You'd have the training landings there, and they'd naval gunfire, so on and so forth. So it's right off of Puerto Rico.
okay, because they ended up having a picture with a Australian girl that very very pretty lady that sat up on their shoulders. Very funny photo. This is actually Rick Rabinold right here pre-mission, and I can't tell if this is Dong Ha or where that's at, but
I can't recognize it right there. It's hard to recognize him with the camo on his face.
and I'm still amazed at the loadouts y'all carry, and I mean, yeah, y'all are humping all kinds of gear right there.
They're average, but probably, without exaggerating, probably 60 to 70 pounds. Then your actual what you call fighting gear. If you notice in that one picture, it was just up there with Rabbi. You got a backpack, and you've got almost everybody did this. I've got a Ranger harness with my 782 belt, all the ammo magazines on it, 2 canteens, and a butt pack in the middle with extra ammo. If you absolutely had to, I would drop the backpack, but I've got my fighting gear right on me. I don't leave any fighting gear. That was my mindset on that. Is I needed the fighting gear. I could maybe do without the backpack if I had to.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
I had some great photos. I was trying to find some of y'all's patrol photos, and I've got some of them put away. But let's see here. There was one other part out of the book. I don't want to ruin too much of the book because, guys, if y'all are always asking about good force recon books, and if y'all the 2 books I've shown today are in the show notes, y'all need to check those out. But one is I think this is close to your last patrol, or it might be your last patrol. And I can't remember where this is, but y'all have actually got an M60 Claymore. So I think y'all are on patrol. You're crossing trickling water of the ravine when all of a sudden all of y'all are ambushed with AK-47s, and you immediately begin yelling along with Sergeant Woodcock some very choice language for the VC or the MVA coming back at them, and then that's where you jump up and snatch the M60, I think, from someone that just got shot, because Peewee's screaming at the doc to get over, and you jump up and start laying waste to the oncoming attack. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like in that moment when you're all of a sudden on patrol, you're crossing the ravine, the little stream, and all hell breaks loose?
That was my last patrol, my 43rd patrol.
God almighty.
We went in on September 5th. That's the day of the jump. The Gunny Webb and the group, they jumped that night, night of the 5th. We were compromised right after we went in. How do I say this? We tried. We could hear some North Vietnamese, or VC, was down in this creek getting water. You could hear the pots and pans rattling. And we just come through a little catch in the jungle. It was a little hooch kind of like built, and inside was this great big basket of rice. And so, long story short, we booby trapped that. Then we heard these pots and pans. Staff Sergeant Woodcock had us set up in an ambush, and just before they got to us, they made a right-hand turn and went up this trail and went up the hill. Well, when we pulled out of the ambush, we received one shot. The North Vietnamese, or VC, was up on the hill, and one of them took a shot at us. So we were compromised again. But so we moved on, and kept talking to Staff Sergeant Woodcock. I was a nervous wreck. I wanted off of the trails. One of the worst things you can do in reconnaissance is stay on trails. It's a death sentence. But he wouldn't heed my advice. And morning of September 7th, we just kind of had our morning drink of water and got underway. I moved down this steep trail. I was running point on that patrol. And this is where a little bit gets mixed up, but Doc Lewis, who wrote the book, saw things his way. And that's all he can remember, which is understandable. When the shit really hit the fan there, I was running point. Lance Corporal Welter was right behind me. We'd come down this steep slope to this ravine. And I kind of sensed, I knew that they were there somewhere. I just knew it. Well, I've run this scenario through my head for 50 some years, virtually every day, of what went wrong. And as we're coming down this slope, I heard a thump, and then something hit my foot. And I glanced down, and here was the bottom half of a hand grenade. What had happened is that bottom half of the hand grenade, it's got the explosives and stuff in it, had unscrewed off of Lance Corporal Welch's magazine pouch. I picked it up, handed it to him. He screwed it back on his pouch. I think at that time, the NVA were coming down the trail on the other side, and they either heard that or seen it, caused them to look. Because I walked a few more feet, and I stepped up on this big boulder. And I kind of bent over, and I looked to my left, because I thought that if there's going to be an ambush, it's going to come there from the left. And just as I felt Rusty, his nickname was Weasel, I felt him come up behind me. He kind of touched my butt pack. And in that instant, as I bent over, they opened up. So I immediately went down and I started returning fire. And Rusty was kind of still standing up, and I yelled at him, "Rusty, get the fuck down." And that's when he fell, and he fell on me. And his
It's all right, sir. It's we don't have to go into any further.
The blood was coming out of his neck, but I couldn't really reach him because the way he had me pinned down, I couldn't move my legs, and I couldn't get enough leverage to move him. And
take your time, sir. It's okay.
He screamed, and the last thing he asked for was his mother. And he had an M79. I got his M79 off of him. Now I'm using my M16, and I think the two NVA, I think they thought they'd kill both of us, because when they stood up, and I managed to kill both of them. And I started slinging rounds out with Rusty's M79, and I'm screaming for a Corman. Yeah, screaming. I knew Rusty was hurt bad. Man, blood was all over me, him. I'm screaming for a Corman, and Ed Uncle, he's screaming. And I didn't know it right at that instant. It just back up the trail about 20 yards. Lance Corporal Gilmore had been killed. He was radio man.
Yeah.
And Doc Lewis was working on him. And by working on him, I don't think Doc understood what was going on down there where I was at. And I didn't know that right at that point that Gilmore had been hit. finally, Staff Sergeant Woodcock crawled up and managed to get Rusty off of my legs to where I could move. And then between me and Woodcock, we dragged his body and gear back up the hill. It was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life. It was steep, and trying to haul him, my gear, his gear, plus trying to suppress some incoming fire. We finally made it back up to where the rest of the team was. And since Gilmore was killed, I got the radio, and we were calling Beacon Light. That's and asking for emergency extraction. And finally, CH-46 came in, and the landing site really wasn't big enough for him. And stuff was heavy. We couldn't blow any more LZ. And he kind of hovered, and he dropped the front ladder way down. And it was close enough that we lifted. We got up the top of the ladder. The door gunner got hit, and he went down. So Peewee jumped on the 50 caliber machine gun that was on that CH-46, and Peewee started using it, and he suppressed some fire that was coming across this small little valley gully, like on the other side. And we managed to get each other up there. I was second to the last. I got on, then Sergeant Woodcock got on. And it's probably a miracle that a bunch of the rest of us didn't get hit, because the chopper has taken some pretty heavy fire. But that pilot maintained until we all got on, and we were way up in Happy Valley. And if you can imagine this, it's way up there, and it's kind of foggy and everything. And he got enough altitude, he kind of rotored down, and at the bottom of the valley was the 7th Marine Outpost, and they had an LZ there. We kind of crashed there. It hit real hard, and we got the bodies and everybody off of there, and sat there for a while, and they finally brought another bird in and got us out. And then we stopped at D-Med and dropped Weasel and Gilmore off there, and came back to LZ Finch at Camp Reasoner. And that was my last patrol. But when I got Rusty's gear together to send back home, I ran across the letter. And he'd been writing his mother about what a shitbird he was, and how I was trying to help him. Rusty, it's another story. Rusty, how he even got through Marine boot camp, I'll never know. As far as doing Marine things, Rusty couldn't do it. He couldn't clean a rifle, or the things Marines are supposed to do. Rusty just couldn't do it. Yeah. But other than that, he was a hell of a musician. And he wasn't even supposed to be on that patrol, because the patrol at Bana, the reason that Rusty's not in that picture at Bana is he stayed in the rear. He got an interview and he was going to go to the Marine Corps 1st Marine Division Band, which is right up his alley. That's what he did. He was not a good Marine as far as the Marine things go, but a good person. But anyway, advanced forward a couple of years. That was in 1968 when I came home in January, after reading that letter he'd written to his mother, that I went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and met his mother and father, and became friends with them. And then a couple of years later, when I met my wife, I took her over there a couple of times, and we ended up getting married in the family room of Rusty's parents' home. 54 years ago, March 16th. And they became very good friends. Rusty was an only child. They became godparents to my children. And right after that, they moved out of Fort Wayne. They bought a small farm, a little town called Waterloo, Indiana. And my kids used to go over there and spend a couple weeks each summer on their farm. And they kind of adopted me in his place, but his dad was a POW in World War II, and his mother just a terrific one. She only asked me one time what really happened, and I told her she never mentioned it again. But I'm sorry, but sometimes I tell that story. It's
don't ever apologize, sir. We're glad for you to be able to share it and willing to share that to help preserve his legacy and share. And on the off chance one day family members are watching and one day can see this, I think it'll mean a lot. And
that runs into Rusty's father worked for a company called Panhandle Eastern Gas Pipeline Company. He did all the legal work for this pipeline, buying land to run a pipeline through farmers' field. If it blew up, any damage done, he'd go in and negotiate with the farmer and all this and that stuff. Well, he had his own helicopter. And in January of '68, when I came back, his mother and dad his dad was working on a job up in Flat Rock, Michigan, which was not too far from Sandusky, Ohio, where I was from. And I had an aunt and an uncle that lived in Riverview, Michigan, which was just not close to Flat Rock. Well, anyway, try to make a long story short, do a little time there talking to each other. My grandmother on my mother's side was up visiting her daughter, my aunt, in Michigan. Well, Russ found out about this, and he had his private helicopter fly over there and got pictures of her. And she was an old Southern Baptist woman that she wouldn't fly, but it's got pictures of the chopper just hovering a couple of feet off the ground. It's one of those bubble choppers, like, smaller. But he was a good enough person. They did that. And then they took her out to dinner, and she had a Shirley Temple and swore up and down she was drunk.
Oh, gosh.
That was just, it's funny how something as bad as what happened that day in 1967 that went on to, we had a lot of joy with those people in years after that. So, and of course, they're both passed away now.
That's a beautiful story. I love hearing stuff like that.
Let's see if I can. Can you? I don't know if I can see that right there. Can anybody see that?
Slide it over to your. There you go. Right there. That's Yes, sir.
That's the day 54 years ago, March 16th, that my wife and I got married.
Oh, wow. That is
in the
beautiful.
Family room of Russ and Marie's home.
A little over your right. There you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. Wow. That is beautiful, sir. Wow. God.
His dad, I went to Canada. His dad had a cabin in Canada. I went up there a couple of times to help him winterize it, called Chapleau, Ontario, Canada.
Wow. That's I bet that was a nice trip for you guys, getting up, especially if you're getting up to somewhere in Canada where you can have a cabin. That's beautiful land up in that area. So I know that had to be a nice trip for you guys. Wow, geez. And I've actually got it.
Get me carried away talking about that stuff. Those are maybe some of the good things that happened in Vietnam.
Yes, sir. And that those are things we enjoy hearing. Like I said, it doesn't have to all be gung ho and craziness. We enjoy the good stuff and the heartwarming stories and such. And I've actually got a few photos of Peewee and some of the guys. I'll show it when we get wrapped up here. We're almost at 2 hours. We'll hit the questions and get to them.
Yeah.
But this is the photo. I don't remember if I think I've sent this to you that Rabbi couldn't figure out everybody involved. And if you see that date down there, September 7th, 1967, Team Countersign led by Sergeant Woodcock observed 10 MVC coming down a trail. Countersign set the ambush. However, they themselves were ambushed. Gilmore, Weasel, Welchel were killed.
Yep.
And unfortunately, he did not know you were in the photo, but I believe we picked you out, and I can't remember if it was here. Were you kneeling down? I know you're in that photo somewhere.
Might have been me sitting on a box over there. It might look like me. It's hard to.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those two. I
That
think
was down. That was. It looks like an LZ Finch.
outside. Yep, at Camp Prisoner at Finch, waiting to go out. If you don't have this, I will mail this photo to you
I've
because
got the patrol report. I do not have that particular photo.
okay, I will email that to you immediately when we get done. And there was another one that I'd want ensure if you were in the mix.
That's Dogma was the other team in first platoon. Countersign was one team. Dogma was the other. Lieutenant Williamson ran Dogma team.
Okay, that's what I was wondering right there. Williamson, Doc Lewis, Rabbi, and I wasn't sure if you were in the mix or not on that one or not.
Not in Dogma. No, not in Dogma. Now, Lieutenant Williamson, he lives close to you in Alabama. He lives in Pansy.
Oh wow, that's not far at all. To be honest with you, that's a stone's throw away from me. I'd have to. Maybe we can see about getting him.
I will ask him. He's a little bit eccentric. I don't know if he would want to be interviewed or not, but I can ask him.
Oh, if he would be open to speaking privately, by all means. A lot of guys aren't open to being on camera and all of that. But if he would ever like to speak privately, I'd love to.
He's a character. He's 82 years old now. He lives with a 40-year-old woman.
Oh, Lord.
He had a hog farm that he sold back a couple years ago, and he's got a little shop there. He likes to rebuild automatic transmissions and old cars. He's remodeling a '67 Chevy pickup right now.
Oh, good Lord! That's a masterpiece right there.
He's a character.
We've got I'll save those photos. I think that you can actually clarify for me. I think we've got some shots of Bana, but we'll hit the questions and we'll get to an interesting closing part of you doing a little time in Cuba, not prison time, doing some service down in Cuba.
Well, it was almost like prison down there.
I was about to say you could say not technically, but it kind of felt like doing time. Jason, how often would you all run a mission with the intent of grabbing a prisoner? How much did that change the makeup of the team in size, gear, and the gear to carry?
Every patrol that you went on was always a potential of snatching somebody. Like I told you, the story of Gunny Webb, and they told us they wanted prisoners or bodies. They prefer a live prisoner, but a body told them a lot too, because they'd take it back and autopsy it, see what condition the body was in, what they've been eating, so on and so forth, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But only a few patrols where I was specifically went on to the whole intent of grabbing a prisoner was only a couple. Where, like I said, each patrol might have presented a situation where you could grab somebody, but it's not like you see on the TV movies. It's hard to find where you can just grab somebody and
you've got to be careful. You don't know if the 2 or 3 guys you see diddy bopping are a point element for a battalion, a regiment, or what have you. And then another, like you said, the movies, people think, if you got a pistol or even a rifle and you shoot them in the leg or the arm, that's going to completely incapacitate them. Boom, you've got your prisoner. But that's not how things work.
No, it's extremely hard to have a situation where you specifically can grab a prisoner with no no afterthought of it. Like you said, you might grab the first guy, and but there might be 500 following him. You know, so it's extremely hard to find that situation where you can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
For Marine Recon or anyone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jason had another one here. Did First Force have a certain helicopter company that was assigned to support you guys more than others, or can you talk about a certain instance where they saved y'all's bacon?
There was a number of instances where they saved the bacon, no doubt about that. When I first started, and my first patrols up at Dung Ha in the DMZ, the Marine Corps was using CH-34 helicopters, and they were the old workhorse at that time. They were slow and noisy and so on and so forth. Then we went to the UH-1Es. Okay,
Oh, wow.
At that time, I don't think they had any specifically assigned just to Force Recon. But a little later on, they started using CH-46 helicopters, they were the double rotors, yeah, there you go. They could carry more weight, carry more troops. Then they finally came up, and they had a couple that they had the windows knocked out of them. They had a 50 cal on the side door, and they were specifically for recon extractions and insertions.
Wow, that's crazy. And like you said earlier, you know that those guys don't get enough praise for the craziness they went into getting y'all out.
There's not enough praise. We had the one patrol I told you where we lost Rusty and Gilmore. That pilot had balls of steel because they was taking some pretty good hits, but he stayed long enough for us to get out and rotored down, and we made it. Yeah.
Wow.
I never had any doubts that those pilots would do what they needed to do to get us out. They never refused to come in.
Boy, this is a good one, and I've got a photo. We have spoke about it later on, but I'll be curious for you. This will kind of tie in with being jump qualified and some of the other question that'll come up. But Mr. Robert was curious, did you guys extract on ropes and ladders at all like SOG would, or was it mostly landing in LZs and jumping off?
Well, a lot of the stuff that they use nowadays either did not exist in my day or it was in its infancy. They had the what do they call that one? That everybody hooks
spy rig
and jerks everybody out at one time. Now, Finlayson had some input on developing that.
Oh.
Now, I myself never did that. The fast roping and stuff they use nowadays, that was not available in my day, not in the Marine Corps anyway.
Wow. Okay. That's every time we hear about getting pulled out on strings, ropes, or snapping into a spy rig like this, or even going out on ladders, it sounds pucker factor inducing, to say the least. There's them landing after getting snatched out, but I mean that's just that's some crazy stuff. And y'all being the first to start doing it and really laying out the book or writing the book on it, that's amazing stuff. Did you end up getting jump qualified in Vietnam or before you went over to Vietnam?
Vietnam.
In Vietnam.
Yeah.
Is it 3 or 5 for you to get your gold?
10.
10. My God. 10. Okay, guys. Yeah, as you can tell, the Marine Corps wants to do it a little bit better. Instead of doing the 5 for your Army, you got to have 10 to get your gold jump wings, like you see in the photos of the guys with their gold wings on their
10. It's 5 for the Army silver wings, and
silver.
It's 10 for the Navy Marine Corps wings.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh man. And was that I've got a great photo of the wings right here. And is that usually a big day for y'all? Do y'all have a day off to maybe celebrate or have a ceremony or what?
No, not really, not then. I'm trying to remember those guys.
These are some of Rabbi's. I never got any IDs on these guys, so I can't help you at all either.
I don't remember the names, the faces either.
I don't even think that's Rabbi, to be honest with you, right there. I was trying to look for a familiar face, but I love those gold wings. You can always tell a Recon Marine most of the time now, especially because you got to be jump qualified with those big golds on. This is an interesting question. From Dwayne LaRue. Did you have any favorite music, but specifically any music that you listen to after a patrol or after a mission?
No. There was a couple of guys that had some reel-to-reel tape recorders. Was either that or some type of portable radio was about where you get music. You could listen to the military radio station, the Good Morning Vietnam,
Armed Forces Services.
But I didn't have anything in particular myself that I would consider my favorite. We had a little record player on the rock pile. I had one record that Sounds of Silence. So,
speaking of,
yeah, right there. That's the rock pile. That's John Holt right next to me, and then in the background is a grunt, Marine grunt lieutenant, and his sergeant there that were up there for doing their radio relays.
Oh wow! How many? So that's a grunt group. Was that often? Would that happen often, where you'd have a recon team up there relaying for a recon group, and then
we were relaying for recon teams, and they were relaying for I believe it was 7th Marines that were down below there at that time.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty interesting. You guys getting to intermingle a little bit like that up there.
Well, then, right there, the way I'm kind of looking in that picture, that's me right there. If you look that way, there's another little peak over there, and there was an Army Special Forces team over there.
Oh,
that were they were radio relaying for their teams that were out wherever.
Did you have much contact with any SF men while you were in country?
Not a whole lot of contact. They were there. We had at Chew Live. He was with us for a while. An E7 Army. His name was Barry, I believe, a Special Forces sergeant, and was at Dong Ha a couple of times. Qué San and Cantien were just little small Special Forces bases when I was up there. About a year later, they got quite big and quite famous. Cantien especially, Qué San. When we were at Dong Ha, we were out of the bush. Sometimes we'd have to ride shotgun for the CBs that we went down to what's called Cam Low, and they'd get gravel to bring back for various concrete work and stuff they were doing there around the airstrip.
Wow, man! And did this? I may have gotten it mixed up. I thought maybe. Did you have any contact with the CBs? I can't remember if they ended up doing a special project for you. I know Rabbi and some of the guys, or Andy had them build him a custom little table. He traded some whiskey for. Did you have any, or did y'all as a group have anything y'all had them help you out with, building, trading wise, or anything?
Not in my case, not particular. Of course, like at Chulai and at Camp Reasoner, the Seabees originally built those hooches.
Oh,
like I said, when I was at Dung Ha, the corporals and below sometimes would have to. As part of your duty, you'd have to ride shotgun on those trucks going down there to get the gravel and coming back. But other than that, no.
Wow. We had recently, gosh, was it yesterday? I've been doing so much work. Everything's running together. We had a Marine H-34 pilot that went over after his tour with the Marine Corps that flew H-34s as well with Air America. And he was speaking about some of his flight missions during his time with the Marine Corps, flying over to the rock pile and dumping either dumping supplies for you guys up there, or I think he said some troops a few times, but most of the time it was what he called milk runs, bringing supplies, mail, and whatever else that was asked or needed. And he was talking about before that there's a famous photo that going around of the little square platform that was up there. And he said before that was built, I mean, you had to be extremely, extremely careful, because it was just it was just sheer rock face. I mean, you really had to be on your game when you were going up there.
That the rock pile?
Yes, sir.
I got another. I have to send it to you. It was in Life magazine.
Oh,
picture of the rock pile. It's got
wow.
Picture of the little hooch hanging off the side of the thing that myself and we had two of us would sleep and two of us would stay on the radio at all times. And just we used some cardboard off of sea ration boxes, pushed down between these rocks to get enough flat area that you could try and get some sleep. When we first went up, I was only supposed to be there a week, and we ended up being 2 weeks.
Man, 2 weeks up there, that's roughing it. I can only imagine the beard and the gamey smell y'all must have had when y'all finally got to get off that place.
Yeah, we were kind of ragged, and the day they picked us up, we stopped at a Marine grunt unit. They had a prisoner, and we stopped and picked up that prisoner and brought him back to Dung Ha with us. And we got the choppers landed there. It was myself, Holtz, and Corporal Moran. We got off the helicopter there, and we grabbed this prisoner's ass off of there. And there was a whole big grunt unit, all brand new guys standing there, ready to go to the field. And looks on their faces of our nasty, dirty butts coming off of there, and kind of ragged looking, and dragging this prisoner. And I think Charlie Campbell pulled up in a Jeep to pick us up, and then we took down and dropped this prisoner off, and ended up going right, almost immediately turned around, get on a C-130 and went to Chulai.
Wow. That's crazy. I had forgotten, and thank goodness someone asked. Did you, when the stoners were around, did you ever personally get to use, test, or take one out?
Yeah, I used them. I've said an excellent weapon, in my opinion. Excellent weapon.
Excellent. This is a rabbi with one of theirs that I guess same time, because I think he was first force around the same time with you.
Yeah.
I forgot what platoon he was in. He was Killer Kane a while, and then I think Groucho Marx and can't remember the other ones. Yeah, like we were speaking offline, I really hate that the Marine Corps whatever word you'd like to choose, cheaped out and didn't get those for y'all, at least for Force Recon. I mean, I can understand that's a lot of money to try and supply a grunt unit or all of the grunts, but at least First Force, give, a few of them. I mean,
well,
because the Navy, there's the rumor going around that the Navy SEALs shot enough ammunition, cost and quantity wise, than the Marine Corps shot in a year that they did in a week or so of training.
probably did. So that's how you get good with them.
Yeah. Another thing that I love the Marines, they can work with anything, usually get the hand-me-downs of everything, but by God, do they make it work and make it work well.
I used to shoot hummingbirds with a BB gun when I was a kid. That's about all I did was shoot that BB gun. So you shoot it enough, you get good with it.
There you go.
That's one reason that the Navy SEALs are good at what they do. They give them almost unlimited ammunition to practice with.
God, that's a dream come true for people growing up who wanted to shoot. All right, we're down to our last few or four, and then you can tell us of your Cuban adventure, and we'll be ready to close it out for the day since we've had you so long here. Bobby was curious, did y'all ever worry about enemy air power?
In my case, no. There was, at that period in time, there wasn't any, not in South Vietnam. So,
at least not that. Although y'all were pretty north in terms of being in southern Vietnam, that's still a bit too. They'd go to the DMZ, but that's still too far that they ain't willing to lose a MiG doing something like that. But good question though, because they did fly around. You can hear from our interviews with SOG guys that they definitely saw MiGs.
Yes. Like I said, I wouldn't. After I told you the story about the F4 Phantoms coming in and strafing on top of that hill, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of something like that.
No. I mean, seeing the stuff that just the door gunners and the Green Hornets with their miniguns and all of that back then, what they could do, I wouldn't want to be on that. And God, multiply today with the Chinooks, the what's the other, the Kiowas. I mean, I can't even imagine. This is another good one. I will be anxious to see what you think of it. Dick's curious about, do you have a story that no one would believe about Vietnam?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them we've heard today, some people would have trouble believing.
Yeah. Well, quite a few that it's almost hard to believe. I can talk about some of it, and I look back now, and it's you kind of wonder why you did some things like that. But I don't know. At that time, I was young, gung ho. I was with some extremely good people.
I think if you, not to interject and take words out of your mouth here, but I think, Dick, if you buy this book and you read about the mission that he was just speaking about at length, I think that had it not been written about, or the man who participated in it telling it right now, if you were to read it anywhere else, I do not think you would believe the action and the firefight they were in at that point in time. I would say that is pretty hard to believe. I mean, that was a hellacious incident.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That's probably the worst one. And there was a lot more that went on there that day than what I just told, or even what Doc told in the book.
Oh yeah.
Just
that we don't need to know as normal people that needs to stay with y'all and amongst the warriors that were there.
Yeah, as I said, Doc and I talked a lot about it, and I was doing one thing at that particular time, and Doc was doing another one. He was in a totally different mindset.
Oh yeah.
And myself and what the rest of the Marines were doing. Peewee Palmer, and we had a Marine captain and another sergeant on that patrol that were along as observers. And is that Peewee? Somebody got Peewee up? Yeah, Peewee.
Mm-hmm.
Peewee came to us, first met Peewee down at Chulai.
I think that's Finley P. Johnson. I can't remember if that's his full name or not, but Rabbi said he was strong as an ox and a damn good bush Marine. Grew up, I think, in Mississippi or Tennessee, and was the son or grandson of slaves, and he said he was one hell of a Marine.
Yeah, I met some very, very fine Black Marines, not only in First Force Reconnaissance Company, but throughout the rest of my tour in the Marine Corps. I had a couple of excellent Black Marines in Cuba when I was down there. Excellent. So
people don't speak enough, and I'm trying to do what I can to get some African American veterans to come on. I do share stories that I know of and such while I can, but the people don't realize there were quite a few SOG men, SF men, and Force Recon African Americans that were just ass kickers and real hardcore, hard charging soldiers. So I try and clear that up as much. People always asking, are there any Black men that served and are in combat and all this? And I'm like, God, of course there were.
Most certainly were. So.
Absolutely. And the Marine Corps, in my opinion, is the biggest melting pot in the United States military. Let's see. Yep, we're down to our last four here. Jason is wondering, did you know about SOG and what they were doing in country? Or did you know about what they were doing on the trail and in Laos?
Yes. And they were one of our big worries, because when you're assigned a patrol, you usually get a no-fire zone where that patrol is going. Anywhere from 4 to maybe 6 clicks, whatever. And there's not supposed to be any friendlies in that area. Anything in that area is fair game. And nobody is supposed to have a fire mission or anything in that area unless you okay it. But that didn't go with SOG. Nobody knew exactly where they were at, and there was always a worry we'd run into each other.
That's a worst nightmare right there. And guys, if you read any books or any Marine for the specific of it, what a tongue tie that was, specifically battalion or force recon books, and you see the acronym NFZ, that is what Mr. Jerry was alluding to. That is a no fire zone. And much like SOG would get their square block, a kilometer area, not just a kilometer, but 6x6 area, Force Recon would get an area much the same that was a no fire zone. And if they found, like he said, anyone in there, they're bad people, and they were getting lit up.
Yeah, that was always a little concern.
Absolutely. I could see why. And there are a few stories of recon teams crossing paths with each other, and thank God the professionals that y'all were stopped and thought and said that didn't look like they were NVA or VC, and luckily crisis was averted. So it did happen. Mr. Robert McCready, corpsmen that are in the Marine Infantry and Raiders are known as Marines now. They don't differentiate between Navy and Marines. They love their corpsmen. We love our docs and combat medics. They're grunts. Yep, absolutely. Grunts we've had on, or the corpsmen we've had on, we absolutely love hearing from them. They are lifesavers, no doubt.
they always deserved a special place. I never saw nor did I hear of a corpsman ever refusing to go after a wounded Marine.
It's really amazing. Some of the stories Doc has shared of other corpsmen he knew that lost their life. Excuse me, sorry, that lost their life during their tour that he was in school with, and some of those stories, they earned awards, but some of those stories are Medal of Honor worthy actions by those brave corpsmen.
Well, they're on our patrols. There were another Marine unless somebody was wounded and they had to administer care. Other than that, they carried a rifle and the same gear as we did, plus their medical kit.
Yeah, that Unit 1 bag. Yeah, they are not only life takers, but also lifesavers in every sense of the word. Let's see. Jason said he's read a book about Force Recon. That's Mr. Bill Peters, I believe, a great book. I always get wrapped up in the importance of the tail end Charlies covering your back trail. Who were some of the men that had that job or did that job better than others that you know of?
I can't single out any one person that was the best at tail end Charlie. In general, we used to kind of switch positions out sometimes. In my case, I like to run point. Some guys like the radio. Some people, they like tail end Charlie. But I can't say that I can specifically identify any one that was actually the best at tail end Charlie. Not that you don't need them. Yeah, you got to have somebody that's wide awake and keep a watch of where you've been.
Would you? I'm anxious. I've not ever asked this question. Your personal feelings. Would you equate equal importance on the point man and the tail end Charlie, or is the point man always in the overall sense more important because it's new ground that's being covered?
Well, being point, I don't know. I don't know if I grew up hunting and fishing and everything. I don't know if that helped me or not, but I kind of had a little bit of natural ability of running point. I could seem to sense things, so on and so forth. But every man in that patrol is as important as the other. Your problem doesn't necessarily always come from the point.
Yeah, I mean, if y'all are on a trail, I mean, y'all can get it from the side, the rear. I mean, heck, we've seen some. If you're in a tree-ridden area, we've heard stories of them tying themselves up in trees to shoot at y'all.
You said, if you're on a trail, that's where you don't want to be.
True, absolutely. Again, there you go. That's the quickest way to get killed.
Yep, it most certainly is. You can parallel the trail, but you don't want to be on the trail.
Man. We've got one more, and then we can cover a few photos and let you talk about your closing trip to Cuba here. Jerry, how often were you operating in Happy Valley? It seems that was a dreaded area for U.S. Marines to operate in. Ricardo.
Happy Valley was generally a hot spot, along with Charlie Ridge, and these places were that way time after time. Other places, you patrol going there and maybe make one contact, and the next 10 patrols don't see anything in there. But Happy Valley was usually, they'd light you up a little bit. Charlie Ridge, another hot one.
Happy, Antenna, Elephant, all of them are bad news. And, of course, you can't forget the Ashaw, but
Ashaw Valley.
My terrible Southern accent always murders that. let's see here. I know we had one more, I believe. Yep. Robert. Mr. Jerry, did you and your team run any patrols across the fence into North Vietnam or Laos? And did you ever run any patrols to find Americans in POW camps?
Never ran any to find POWs, and myself, the other ones in Laos, I won't say. I don't know.
I've got on good authority y'all accidentally crossed maybe once or twice accidentally. The map wasn't working as well as they should. I've heard on a few occasions.
I mentioned there one staff sergeant that liked to wade rivers or streams.
Oh, which staff sergeant was this?
He's the one that had the AR-15. I cannot remember his name.
Okay.
Cannot remember his name. Saved my life. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to end up quickly somewhere trying to wade and cross rivers or float down the river.
I even talked to Charlie Campbell about him. I thought maybe Charlie would know him since he was a staff sergeant.
Wow.
Bo ran a one patrol with him. So.
Wow. And what as we get to the end here, then I just saw, of course, something I need to ask you about after this. What the average rank of the guys, because you've got corporals running teams here, but what was the average rank and age for the average Marine Recon man while you were in?
Oh, probably about the same as me. Probably 20 to 22. Right in that area. Normally, as a sergeant or above would be team leader. That one patrol there, Bana, I was because the team leader got sick. Some of the teams are run by officers. Usually, for the most part, usually nothing above a first lieutenant would run a team in the bush for the most part. Down in Chulai, our CO down there is a Major Soretta. I ran 2 patrols with him. Wow. And he was just another Marine along. He stood his own watch, and he was just along. He'd observe, but he didn't use his rank to override anybody or anything. So.
Wow, I always love hearing that when the big wigs come in on stuff and they try as best as they can to just be one of the guys and blend in as much as possible.
Yeah, he was a very good officer.
Wow.
He didn't take no BS, but he was a good officer.
That's you don't hear of many Marine officers during Vietnam that took too much BS. Let's see. I believe we have hit our questions here, so we'll go over a few. Hang on one sec. A few pictures, and we'll let you share, and we'll close it out. I did kind of want to show guys where you were kind of working out of, and for the most part, you were at Dong Ha, correct?
Yeah, that's where I started out at.
Okay. So, guys, see, there's the DMZ, of course, North Vietnam, and
here, Camp Carroll's where we were at.
And if I'm not mistaken, Mutter's Ridge and such is right around in here as well. Yeah, that's bad news in Khe Sanh, the base, and then Lang Vây, it got overrun. The valley, here, the hottest part in South Vietnam and I Corps. That's where you were.
When I first started, most of those places were just small special forces camps. Approximately about a year later, they became big.
Wow, that's amazing how quick they got going, and by 68, 69, they're big enough and important enough, if you will, to be overrun and have to be shut down.
Almost all the military after when I left in 68, the ones that came after me, they really started running into a lot of NVA. Not so much the VC, but a lot of NVA soldiers. And I think they might have had it a little rougher than what my people had.
Those late war, anybody, we spoke to a few last week, a guy in 71 that served with SOG, and they were they ran in country patrols for training and such, but it had gotten by 71, they stopped or slowed down on cross border, and he said the in country missions were as hard as the cross border. When he first got there, it had gotten so crazy with NVA in South Vietnam.
Yep.
We will go to, I was curious about this one. I can't remember clearly. That's a radio site, but
that's me there with a grease gun, and that was with 2nd Recon on the Med cruise. That's on the island of Crete.
Okay, this is your post-Vietnam duty then.
Yep.
Okay, wow. I was wondering about that because I was about to say I don't ever remember you telling me you used a grease gun in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was no, I don't like the grease gun. That was easier to carry. I was a sergeant by that time.
Wow.
I picked up E5 sergeant right after I came back to the States in 1968.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty heavy duty.
That's the littlest guy there. That's Gunny Webb. That littlest guy here, that's Stumpy. Brute is his name. Owens, I believe, is the other guy's name.
Wow, that's a great photo of you, and that's Gunny Webb again.
That's Gunny Webb on Hill 700 at Chulai.
Okay, let me write that down. Hill 700. I need to label my photos when we get done. And then these last three are very, very interesting photos. The team shot. I'm trying to spot you.
I'm not in that particular one. I think that's where I went on Arnold. It's right in the middle is Doc Laport. That's R.E. Williams, I believe.
R.E. Williams.
That's Joe Phillips. On the upper, I can't remember. Jimmy Hager right there.
Oh, wow, Hager. Damn, that's a big
John
man
Holt.
right there.
That's John Holt. The guy right next to him is Buzz Williams, Tex.
Tex, okay.
And that's a Sergeant Campbell, a different Sergeant Campbell than I've mentioned before. R.A. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's R.A. Yeah.
All M14s ready to rock and roll.
That one right there on Neil, that's Wild Jack Walls. Ralph Walls is his real name. We call him Wild Jack. Gunny Webb gave him that name.
Oh, Lord. If Gunny Webb named him Wild, that must have been a heck of a
story in itself.
I was fixing to say he had to have been wild to pick that nickname up from Gunny Webb.
Well, he on June 7th, where R.A. Williams and Lieutenant Martin were killed, he carried Lieutenant Martin on his back for, I don't know how long. He was the only one that wasn't wounded on that patrol.
God.
And you never, he was a character. I still, he lives in it's right by Louisiana, Texas border. He lives on the Texas side. But
Texarkana area.
Waterloo, Iowa is where he was from.
Wow. A corn-fed Iowa boy.
Yeah. He just had open heart surgery here. That's probably been about a year ago now.
Oh, Lord.
I still email him here and there.
Hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, he is. Last I talked to him, he is.
Excellent.
He married a girl from Guam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's me there at Chulai.
That's a great. I love the. Who did the artwork? Was that way before your time, or
no? It's I was there, and But to be honest, I don't remember who did that. I've got the original design for the First Force Reconnaissance Company patch. And I honestly, I can't tell you how the hell I got it, but I do have it.
I would love to see a photo of that when you send the new batch of photos. If you've got it out where you, of course, I don't want you to have to dig through everything, but that would be something to see. I love that photo of you. That's great. I wonder, First Force Recon. I wonder what it says. First all
the way.
First all the way. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And the other are these other two are collages. This one is in the bush. I think that's Gunny Webb again.
Yeah, Gunny and Jimmy Hager.
Oh, that's great. Wow. I need to make a note of that's Mr. Hager and Gunny
that was
Webb.
Hill 700 at Chulai. That's the only reason we could take a picture like that is on that outpost. No way could you do that in the bush.
Oh God, no.
That's a white phosphorus grenade from Hill 327.
Boy, I mean, look at that damage right there. Just
what some people did when you was up there, you got kind of bored, so you did little things like that. See who could throw a satchel charge the furthest down the hill.
Oh wow! Look who we've got joining us. Mr. Bart's here. Hey, Mr. Bart. Hi, Bart Russell, Killer Kane here. I went to Alan's house when I came home from Vietnam. Oh wow! I wonder if he means Mr.
I remember the name Bart Russell.
I don't know where that went. Mr. Bart was we just had I'll send him the interview. He was with Killer Kane and with Lieutenant Finlayson in I believe 67 and 68. Yeah. He's a stud, great, very kind man, and great recon Marine. He's actually featured quite heavily in Andy's book, Killer Kane and Rice Paddy Recon.
Yeah. Now, see, where I came into play with Colonel Finlayson and Rabbi, and that was the start of my second tour. I'd come back off of leave and came back over there.
That's Bart right there in Vietnam days.
That's why it's a lot of people don't understand that I was approximately a year ahead of a lot of the guys there. I'd already, like I said, I started out my thing up on the DMZ at Dong Ha.
Oh, he said 66 and 67. My bad, Mr. Bart. I've got my brain so full of stuff going on. He went and visited the Ethan Allen family from Philly when he got done out of Vietnam. Great. Glad you could join us, Mr. Bart. We're here at the tail end, but nonetheless, glad you could join. And we looked at this one, and then there's another collage. This was I forgot if you
that's myself drinking out of the canteen, Gunny Webb right in the background, and Jim Hager there.
Is that 700 again?
Hill 700 at Chulai, yeah.
I love the waterways back there. Is that the South China Sea that this leads into?
Yep.
Holy moly! Wow, what a view! What an absolute beauty of a view. And this, I'll be curious. This is, I think you said this was Ba Na, and I've got a few photos I can show you that maybe you can help me.
All of those are Ba Na.
Oh, wow. Look at that. You can actually see it very cleared out.
We set up on the second story what there was of it when we were up there. That's a 106 recordless rifle team there.
He went from Dong Ha to Nang. That is great because I was curious. I thought the background looked like Bana, but I did not want to be
Yeah, that's us right
presumptuous.
there. That's Team Countersign.
Wow, you weren't kidding. I mean, that place was a big, luxurious estate before.
It was probably very beautiful at one time. I don't know if you can see them in that down in there. There's some houses, or I'll call them lodges,
Oh yeah, wow, look at that.
and a lot of those were probably very beautiful at one time.
Oh yeah, you can see wall structure a little bit out of there. I'm gonna run that through an AI and clean that up. I bet we can
When
find
we
out.
when we first went in there, the first day we received
Wow,
fire from a couple of those, and we backed out and came back in the second day.
wow. That's some thick real estate and tough land to get through. It looks like that y'all are working
Yeah,
on.
uh, I think that they've rebuilt that now, and it's okay. You can look it up on the internet, and it's supposed to be a fancy place nowadays.
I wouldn't doubt it because Da Nang and Marble Mountain now have a 5-star resort on them now, where where not only SOG's CCN but also the Marine Air Wing base was.
Yeah, it's a mortar pit there, and that's our little camping area while we're up there.
Is that you on radio?
Uh, yeah, it sure looks like me.
I was about to say, how what was your fighting weight back then in
Oh,
size?
got 160 pounds.
Oh, how
I
tall?
go I go about 230 right now.
How tall? What was your height back?
5'11".
Wow. Okay, you're not too small. That's big. I'm always surprised that you guys that are 6 foot or over 6 foot out there running recon with Indig and all that. I always find that pretty interesting. um, Bart said we love tap. Uh oh, sounds like you're getting an air raid. Hager and I served with Hager from Dong Ha, all in Da Nang. Wow. Yes, sir. We've got great photos of Killer Kane with Mr. Hager. I had not seen these photos. Didn't realize they were Mr. Hager until today of the photos of Mr. Jerry sent me. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful of those. All righty. We're again. God, I've had you 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh goodness!
Would you like?
If you got to go, just let me know.
No. I didn't want to hold you too long. Did you want to? Would you care to tell us how you wrapped up your career in Cuba with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got down there. I got in a little bit of trouble at office hours, and the CO gave me 3 choices: volunteer, go back to Cuba, or volunteer, go back to Vietnam, volunteer, go to Cuba, or take a bus to corporal. Well, I like being a sergeant, and I didn't really want to go back to Vietnam right at that time. So I said, when's the next plane to Cuba? And 2 mornings later, I was on the plane to Cuba. And that ended up, that was bad duty. I'm not kidding. It was almost like being in prison down there. It was.
I can't imagine.
It was not a lot of fun. It was hot, nasty. They'd have a Marine barracks, Navy barracks, Marine barracks, Navy barracks, staggered. And come 4 o'clock, the club, which they called the Animal Pit, would open. By 7 o'clock, the Marines and Navy are fighting.
When you're tasked, or should I say not tasked, when you're forced down there, what's your job? What's going on at Guantanamo? There's not a prison there at the time, so.
Well, no, not the prison they have nowadays, no. But you just, I come in there as an E5 sergeant, and well, first day there, first sergeant, company first sergeant told me, pull and draw a rifle in 782 gear. He said, you'll be on post 1 tonight. And I said, I'm a sergeant in Recon. I don't stand post. He said, you stand post, your ass will be in jail. So anyway, first night there, I stood guard post, and they had an overabundance of corporals and sergeants right at that time. And a couple of weeks later, most of those guys rotated and went to wherever, back to the States. And I picked up a squad as a squad leader. And then a couple more guys rotated back. I ended up being a platoon sergeant, acting platoon sergeant down there. And the duty itself ended up being fairly good. I'd only stand sergeant of the guard every 9th day. And what I do in the mornings, I didn't have sergeant of the guard. You just give your training assignments for that day, whatever they might be. And for the rest of the day, you kind of lollygag around. They had a nice beach down there. I used to go down there and dive. And
Wow.
but it was, you couldn't get off of there, and you had the windward and leeward side. Oh God, it was something. It's hard to explain. The bunker line out there was in the daytime, every other bunker was manned, okay, but it was manned by a Marine with an M14 rifle and one magazine with 20 rounds of ammunition, okay? Every other bunker was a machine gun bunker, which was not manned during the daytime. At nighttime, every bunker was manned by 3 men with an M14 rifle and 20 rounds of ammunition each. That's 60 rounds. Each machine gun bunker, which was every other bunker, was manned with 3 Marines, 2 with a rifle, 1 machine gunner, and 1 box of machine gun ammo, which is 200 rounds of belted ammo. And our job was to hold that base for 48 hours should the Cubans invade. We couldn't have held it for 48 minutes. You didn't have, by the time you fall your reserve company out to what they call the FDL, Final Defensive Line, and issue ammo and grenades where they could even think about starting a fight, you'd be overrun. The Cubans had something like 500 tanks on their side. We had 5.
Oh.
Of course, they had the airstrip down there with a couple of fighters on it, but I don't think they'd have been much help if they'd ever invaded. But they never did invade. But almost every night as sergeant of the guard, some nights you'd have 1 or 2, some nights you'd have 40, 50 people come across the no man's land and cross the wire. We were not allowed to help them until they got on our side of the wire, and then we could offer assistance to them. And anybody that believes in communism, I wish they could have seen some of these poor people, what they went through to get to our side of the lines.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
On the river that come out of Guantanamo Bay and went inland to Cuba, we had a Marine guard post on each side of that river. It was an elevated post. And there'd be Russian ships come up through there all the time, and our glorious Marines, you just have to watch the Marines give them the finger, and the Russian sailors and people shooting moons, give them the finger back, cussing each other. But it was very boring duty overall, and it's quite interesting. So,
wow. So, how long was this stint, and was this your
8 months? I think I was down there. Yeah.
Wow. And is that your official last duty station? Is that your last?
Well, yeah, I came back to the States, and I got out of the Marine Corps. 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines is where I was discharged from.
Wow, man. So how what did you retire as rank wise, and how many years in?
It's Sergeant E5, 4 years.
Wow. Jeez Louise, that did you when you retired, did you have any plans for? Did you think about the reserves or anything, or were you just ready to part ways and start your post-military career?
Right at that time, like I said, I was a little disillusioned after Cuba. some other time, maybe I could tell you some of the issues they had that the Marine Corps, not only myself, but the Marine Corps had down there. And I wanted out at the moment. I didn't want to go back to Vietnam again. But anyway, I came home and got, at that time, in Sandusky, Ohio, General Motors plant, which is Delphi, General Motors Delphi plant, or not Delphi, New Departure Hyatt division of General Motors, was in Sandusky. And they were hiring a lot of veterans.
Oh, good.
Anybody that's just gotten out of the military, you pretty much get a job here, which is what I did. And at that time, I made $3.25 an hour, and which was good money at that time.
Wow. Yes, sir.
But I didn't like being in that factory and doing that job, and I was just about ready to go back in the Marine Corps because I kind of hated civilian life.
Wow.
Anyway, about that same time too, I ran into Vicky, my wife, and one thing led to another, and fell in love. And history and life is what it is, and here I am, old, fat, and
and got that's where Shane came from, and got grandchildren, I can imagine,
and his sister Amber. And now I have I got 4 grandchildren and 2 great grandchildren.
Oh wow, great! You're a great grandfather now. Congratulations on that as well. Wow, yeah. That's amazing. So did you? I take it you're fully retired and enjoying yourself now.
Well, yeah, I'm fully retired, but the last 5-6 years, like I said, it started out with lung cancer.
Yeah,
it took out half my right lung, and then I got Parkinson's disease, and I got heart problems. And last year was really bad because I had all of those prostate problems, and I went 87 days with a catheter in me, and then they did the surgery. This year started a whole lot better. At the moment, I haven't been ill. So, yeah.
Well, we'll keep you on our prayer list, and hopefully that rough stuff is behind you for a while. It sounds like you've been put through the ringer the past few years.
I'm 77 years old now, and the Lord's got me through to this part. But like I said, I laid around through the lung cancer and the chemo and all of that stuff, and so
my favorite.
I got a pot belly now, and I got suspenders on it. You can see here. Yeah.
My dad and grandfather wore suspenders, and I love them. That instantly reminds me of my father. I like my favorite saying that they stole from, I forgot the famous person who said it, but they always said it. Getting old ain't for pussies. So
yeah, you got that right.
So I like to keep that in mind and remind y'all when y'all are feeling a bit old and all that, and it's like, well, y'all are still tough and kicking, so because it ain't for the weak of heart to get old.
Yeah, that's a fact.
We've already, like I said, we've already started getting people saying, don't forget don't forget about a part 2. So we will line that up when we get some more photos and some talks that we can cover and see what we're going to talk about. But we'll put a part 2 already in the plans. Is there anything else you would like to share for today, Mr. Jerry?
No, nothing I can think of at this particular time.
All righty. Well, again, Mr. Bart, Mary Jo, Shane, glad you could jump in for a while. Mr. Robert, Daniel, Jason, everybody, Kyle, Ricardo, everyone, Dick, who's jumped in and gave a great questions to Mr. Jerry. I thought today went well. A lot of great questions. It's knocked it out of the ballpark. And, of course, I thank you to Mr. Jerry today for spending so much time with us, because Lord knows it's been a long, hadn't seemed like 3 hours, but it's been 3 hours now.
Yeah, it went quick, but I didn't expect this long either.
I didn't either, and I can't thank you enough for it. And we'll keep in touch and plan a part 2 out. You hang on, I'll hit the end stream and we'll talk for a second offline. But guys, we're going to shut it down for the day. I've got some stuff to take care of now that we're done, and going to let Mr. Jerry enjoy the rest of his afternoon. So
thank all of you all out there. I thank all of you.
Absolutely, and I'll pass along the messages that are coming in and all that to you when we talk again. But let me close this out, and we'll talk in just a second. Guys, we'll see y'all later. Y'all have a good day.